So Courtney, since 2012, there have been 250 deer tested positive for CWD in Pennsylvania. And now you just said in 2019, we've already had 38. So more than 10% of the total of what we've had in the last 6+ years has already been found in Pennsylvania. And how were those carcasses collected? Were those road kills, or is that just from archery season?
Yes, so we actually got we've been getting a good turnout so far in archery season with heads being deposited in head collection bins.
Oh, great.
But the majority of those positives that we found so far for this year have been through roadkill. So we have roadkill contractors within our disease management areas, and their primary responsibility is to pick up roadkill deer and have them tested within these areas. And then also those deer would have been clinical suspects. So a clinical suspect is just a deer that's showing signs of disease. They look sick. We get reports of this all the time. Our game wardens will go out and check those out and euthanize those deer and have them tested.
Okay.
So it could have either been through clinical suspect or roadkill deer. The large majority of our samples that we take every year do come from hunter harvested deer within the disease management area from voluntary submissions of heads, or also we test a random sample of heads from processors and taxidermists across the state.
Okay. So we are monitoring not just disease management areas, but the entire state.
Yes.
To try to watch out for the spread of this. Okay. So, I was here at the press conference for CWD, the plan that we are floating right now in the state. And my question is, you hear people, concerned with herd reduction, that we're going to wipe out the deer herd. This is going to be an eradication of deer. Two questions. Why is herd reduction so important? And exactly what are we talking about doing in Pennsylvania as far as how widespread would this herd reduction be? And would it be an eradication of the entire deer herd in the state? The eradication of the entire deer herd in a particular area? What exactly are we looking at?
So first, just to respond to that, our goal is definitely not to eradicate the deer out of Pennsylvania or in any individual area. We couldn't eradicate all the deer if we wanted to, but we don't want to. It's just not possible. But in response to why do we want to reduce deer numbers around known CWD positives, the primary reason for this is because, like I said earlier, there's currently no cure or vaccine for chronic wasting disease. Chronic wasting disease is always fatal, and since there is no cure, our options to manage chronic wasting disease are very limited. So far, the only thing that has found any success at controlling chronic wasting disease is using increased hunter harvest and target removals around known CWD positives. There's examples of this being successful in New York, in Minnesota. Illinois has been able to use increased hunter harvest and target removals to keep chronic wasting disease at bay. They're keeping it extremely low, infection rate below 5% for over 16 years. And I get a lot of people who say that that's not successful because they still have chronic wasting disease. But when you look at the trends that are in other states, and to know that Illinois has been able to pretty much keep chronic wasting disease maintained below that 5%, that's pretty impressive. Mm-hmm. In my mind, that's success. Mm-hmm. So it's really the only option we have right now. And I would like to say that there's a better solution out there, and I would love to tell people that we could do something else, but right now, it's what we have. And I can't promise that it's going to work in Pennsylvania. Just because it's working in Illinois, just because it worked in New York, just because it worked in Minnesota in some isolated areas, doesn't mean it's going to work in Pennsylvania. But it's the only thing we have, and I would rather us try and fail than not try at all and just let CWD continue to get worse in the state. So that's kind of where we're at right now with it. The draft response plan, what is proposed in the draft response plan is really to allow hunters to be the first line of defense against chronic wasting disease. We don't want to do target removals. We don't want to use sharpshooters to harvest deer. It's expensive, and it takes a lot of staff's time and energy in order to make that happen. We really want hunters to have that first opportunity, and we really want to work with hunters to fight chronic wasting disease in the state. So in the draft response plan, you're going to see exactly that. We're trying to give hunters more opportunities to lower deer populations around known positives. So you're going to see that. And we do mention targeted removals in there, that we will consider targeted removals if we don't meet management goals in areas. But we're talking about very isolated operations. So we're talking about, maybe 1 to 3 mile radius around a known positive. And we're talking about taking only the deer that would need to be taken. So on average, we're estimating that within this 3 mile radius, we may need 350 deer taken. Hunters on average are already harvesting about 7 to 8 deer per square mile. So our numbers are actually almost there. To reach that 350, we'd really need about 12 deer per square mile. So you're saying we need an additional 4 to 5 per square mile taken within these 3 mile radiuses.
Okay.
So.
And that would be all mortality. Hunters, I hear them talk about, are we going to count roadkills within that area? So
we are going to, it's any mortality
any mortality that we can
counts. Roadkill deer, hunter harvested deer count. Honestly, I think we may already
crop damage.
Yeah.
If there would be crop damage deer. Okay.
I think we're already probably fairly close to reaching these management goals in certain areas. It's just that we don't know because a lot of people aren't putting their heads in head collection containers to be tested. So if everybody would put their head in a head collection container to be tested, we may only be talking about a very small amount of deer that need to be taken. Additional deer that need to be taken.
It's not an eradication of the herd.
No,
we're not trying to wipe out every deer in those areas.
And I mean, the reality of it is yeah, you may see less deer. You're probably going to see less deer. It might be a little bit harder going out hunting for a couple of years. But I think that we would rather it be a little bit harder to harvest a deer and try to fight this disease than, it'd be really easy and you see deer and
absolutely,
and it just gets worse.
Yeah, I understand.
So that's where we're at.
Okay. So you had mentioned somewhere between 1 and 3 mile radius of where there was a positive detected. Is that the same for a deer farm detection versus a free range deer detection? Exact same
Okay. Management techniques, no matter whether it's in a captive facility that would be found or a wild deer. And that's just how we've always managed chronic wasting disease from the Game Commission aspect. It doesn't matter whether it's in a captive facility or whether it was a wild deer. We respond to it the exact same way.
And the whole goal of this is just to cut down on the interaction from deer to deer. Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, by reducing deer numbers around positives, we're lowering the chance that infected deer will come in contact with the healthy deer. And then also, the other thing that it does is it helps lower the accumulation of prions onto the landscape in that area. Okay. So we can't do anything once those prions are already in the soil, but if we respond quickly, we can help lower the amount of prions that do get into the soil by lowering the deer population.